What's up, guys? Let's continue our study. So, in the next video, we stop here in the lesson 3. We are not. I am learning. And Vim, NeoVim. So, let's continue. Lesson 3.1, the put command. Type P to put previously deleted text after cursor. Move the cursor to the first, okay, line below. Type DD to delete the line and start in the NeoVim register. Move the cursor to the C above where the deleted line should go. Okay. Type P to put the line below the cursor. Repeat. Okay. DD. Then here. Then P. Okay. Then this. And this. Cool. Okay. So it's a copy paste. Something like that. Let's close this and this. So P to paste. In the resume that I changed that. You can also put the text before the cursor with P, capital P. So if I did this and this, okay. So capital P to put above and normal P to put below. Okay. P to paste below the cursor and P to paste above. That's right. The replace command. Type RX to replace the character at the cursor with X. Move the cursor to the first line below market. Move the cursor so that it is on top of the first error. Type error and then the character which should be there. Repeat steps 2 and 3. Okay. So here RX or XR. Where is the command? RX. Okay. U RX. To replace. Okay. E R to replace. Fuck. It's not correct. What is wrong? Or I should replace with X. No. It's line, no line. Okay. Remember that you should be learning by doing, not memorizing. Okay. To change until the end of a word, type CE. Move the cursor to the first line below, mark place the cursor on the type U in lib, type CE and then correct word. In the case, type ein. Press S. C E ein. C E words. C E read. C E using. Okay. R to replace. C to remove. C to delete the word. From where the cursor is till the end of the word. Notice that C deletes the word and place U in insert mode. And place U in the insert mode. But what is the difference with CE and yesterday we see something that do DE. What's the difference? It's just that put me in the insert mode. Fuck. Like if I put here the DE, it's done the same thing, but I just don't go into the insert mode. Okay. More changing using C. The change operator you use with the same motions as delete. Number and motion. The change operator works in the same way as delete. The format is number C number motion. The motions are the same, such as W word and dollar end of line. move the first line below. Okay, here, here. Move the cursor to the first error that is here. Type C. What I have done. Move the cursor to the first error. That should be here. Well, let's do this. C and this. No. Why don't reverse? Okay. C cipher. Why don't delete the two? Be corrected using the C dollar commands. I don't get it. The difference with C is that when I execute, I am being put in the insert mode. I think you can use the backspace key to correct mistakes while typing. Fuck. Why when I press J, it's deleting things? Why? What have I done? Oh my god. Okay. It's because G is the wrong. I was in capital letter. Okay. The end of this line is okay. Let's see, and then this to be corrected using the C dollar commands Dutch ask. Okay. Lesson 3 summary. To put back text that has been deleted, type P. This puts the deleted text after the cursor. If a line was deleted, it will go on the line below the cursor. Back in the line there. Has been deleted. The To replace the character under the cursor, type R, and then the character that you want to have there. To replace the character under the cursor. The change operator allows you to change from the cursor to where the motions takes you. Type C to change from the cursor to the end of the word. C to change to the end of the line. Change from where the cursor is to the end of the word. C to change from where the cursor is to the end of the line. Now go to the next lesson. Okay. Lesson 4.1, cursor location and file status. Type CG. CG is Control G. Okay. G. Lesson 4. Type G to move to a line in the file while I go to the end of the line. To move to a line, but what line? Lesson 4. Note, read the entire lesson before executing the steps. Hold down the Ctrl key and press G. We call this CG. Okay. Is read Ctrl press G. Yeah, read the entire lesson before executing any of these steps. I don't have done this. Hold down the Control key and then press fuck. Hold down the Control key and then press G. We call this a message will appear at the bottom of the page with the file and the position within the file. Remember the line number for step 3. Okay. this command show your location at the file and the file status 471 and how much lines. That's a really useful command. You may see the cursor position in the lower right corner of the screen. This happens when the ruler option is set. Okay. Press G to move you to the bottom of the file. Type GG to move you to the start of the file G and then GG. Okay. And then I forgot that I must read everything before doing the command. Lesson 4. Type the number of the line you were on and then G. This will return you to the line you were on when you first press CG. If you feel confident to use it, okay. If I type 481 and then G. So if you press G and then 481 and then G. Okay, okay. 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 Ask cancel the under if you go to the bottom of the file, you to go to the top of file under plus to go to the designated line. Designated crap. Designated line. It's so comfortable, like just typing the things, but I need to get used with the movements because I confuse myself when I'm like trying to go up and down. Lesson 4.2, the search command. Type by a phrase to search. I have done this. Search the same phrase again. Simply type N to search for the same phrase in the opposite direction. Press N. Okay. cursor have been. Just a second, I'm going to the bathroom. I don't know if you guys hear, but I just turned on the forgot the word. Air conditioning. I don't think that's the correct word, but whatever. Okay. C O to go back. Search for a phrase in the backward direction use instead of. Okay. She's search. Phrase opposite where I am. Where am I? Backward direction. What do you mean backward direction? Like if I press this, then from here, they go here, then here. And then if I did this error, they go there. Forward. Okay. Yeah, it's the what I was thinking. Opposite. Okay, to go back to where you came from, press U to go back where you came from. C I matching parentheses. When the search reaches the end of the file, it will continue at the start unless the wrap scan option has been reset. .3 matching parentheses search type percent to find a matching. By the way, who not the who induced me to use a nailing was the YouTuber the Primechin. So it's his fault that I'm doing this. Because he looked like such a good engineer, and I want to be like this guy. So let's continue. Down. Type percent to find a matching parentheses. I don't know how to read this. Please, even in Portuguese, I don't know how to read this. Place the cursor on any or in the line below market. Now type the cursor will move to the matching parentheses or break it. Type percent to move the cursor to the other matching break it. Move the cursor to another and see what percent does. This percent. Okay. Percent. What is cool is that already enhanced where it closes. That's pretty nice. It works with this, or they just jump to the next. Okay. You need to get used to this. That's cool. This is very useful in the debugging a program with unmatched parentheses. Yeah. But not in Python. Because Python they use because they don't have like they do have indentation, but they don't have the open and close thing. So I don't know if this is it's useful. I would use a lot of this when I'm get used to nailing. First I need to get used with this movementation. Down, up, left, right, down, up, left, right. This is very useful in debugging a program with unmatched parentheses. Okay. Lesson 4.4, the substitute command. Type the thing to substitute new for old. Move the cursor. Type SD for D. The is, but they do this based on where my cursor is. They use the cursor with the base, because can I place the cursor here, or I need to place on top of? Adding the G flag means to switch to globally in the line, change occurrence of the in the line. Okay, without the G. Let's see. Substitute D for D. The and then enter. I need to play. I need to press enter. I think. I don't think so. Let me try. Fuck. This is the line, then substitute Z for Z below. Yeah, I need to enter. You enter. Substitute Z for Z below. Type enter. Okay. Substitute old for new. This substitute a word from a line. Add the G. At the end of the commands to substitute. Yeah, if I read the text, I should know. And the G flag means to switch to globally in the line. Adding the G flag means to substitute the below the line. To change every occurrence of the character string between two lines. Type where are the line numbers of the range of lines where the substitute is to be done. A means for 1, 2, 3. Oh, the whole file. I don't get it. This E.A. I don't get it. To change every occurrence the whole file, to find every occurrence in the whole file with a prompt whether to substitute or not. Uh, Forget it. So what was the command? It's G, I think. 500. Yeah, this I will going to use. It's like Control D in VS Code. Uh, the old new G. Did change the. Oh, I make an emoji. I have make an emoji. Pretty. Oh. But I don't want that emoji. I don't want that. Old, new. It's not here. It's here. I don't want that. How do I remove this? Okay, I should be okay. To change every occurrence in the file. Change every very occurrence in the whole file. So my grammar is bad in English, so don't blame me. I mean, blame me because I don't go after to study this. Just type in some time, I will be good, I think. And you can also select the lines you want to substitute first using visual mode. This will be explained more in the future lesson. Summary, okay, display your location at the file status. Move to the end of the file. Number G moves to the line. Yeah, G moves to the first line. Typing followed by a phrase. Search for the phrase. Typing followed by a phrase. Search backward for the phrase. After a search, type N to find the next occurrence in the same direction, or N to search in the opposite direction. CO, that is Control O, takes you back to older positions. CI to newer positions. Type percent while the cursor is on A, goes to its match. To substitute new for the first old in a line. Type to substitute new for all olds on a line. Type to substitute phrases between two lines. Type to substitute all occurrence in the file. Type to ask for confirmation each time and see at C. Okay, so if I type GC, they don't they don't just make the change. They asks for confirmation. Okay. How to execute an external command? Type followed by an external command to execute that command. Type the familiar command to set the cursor at the bottom of the screen. Allows you to enter a command line command. Now type the exclamation point character. This allows you to execute any external shell command. As an example, type ls following then hit enter. This will show you a list of your directory, just as if you were at the shell prompt. It is possible to execute any external command this way, and you can include arguments. All the commands are executed when you press enter. So if I do okay. So if I do this, okay. Let's remove something. But I don't know what removes. I need, if I did this and then ls and then touch, no, I can't do that. So I need to input this ls then okay, that's cool. I should have separate this in sections, whatever. Allows you to write it's not shell, this is just right. Let's see. writing files to save the change made to the text. Type file name, type ls to get the listing of your directories. You already know you must hit enter after this. Choose a file name that does not exist, such as test. Now type test, where test is the file name you choose. This saves the current file under the name test. To verify this, type again to senior directory. If you were to exit Nuvin and start it again with Nuvin test, the file would be an exact copy of the tutorial when you save it. Now remove the file by typing, okay, I already do this, but let's try. I'm going to save this as test. And let me see. ls. Alright. To save part of the file, type v motions file name. Move the cursor to this line. Press V and move the cursor to the fifth item below. Notice that the text is highlighted. Press character at the bottom of the screen. Type wtest. Before you press enter, Nuvin will write the select line to the file test. Use to see it, do not remove yet, we will use it in the next lesson. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Note pressing V starts visual selection. You can move the cursor around to make the selection bigger or small. Then you can use the operation to do something with the text. For example, that's the text. But if I want to copy, how do I copy? I want to copy. I need to know how to copy. Copy and paste. To retrieve the contents of the file, type file name, place the cursor just above this line. Note, after execute step 2, you will see text from lesson 5.3, then move down to see the lesson again. Press U to undo after you are done. Now retrieve your test file using the command, where the test is the name of the file used. The file you retrieve is placed below the cursor line. To verify that the file was retrieved, cursor back in. Notice that there are now 2 copies of lesson 5.3, the original and the retrieved version. Now you can also read the output of the external command, for example. Reads the output of the last command, puts below in the cursor lesson. Okay, I won't do this. Let me just repeat. Lesson 5 Summary. Command executes an external command. Some useful examples are lsrm. File name writes the current Nelvin file to disk with name file name. Vmotions. Vmotion is cool. Oh. So these no it right ls so let's do that again. Move the cursor here, press down here, then like this, test, and then to retrieve the contents of file type, place the cursor just above this line, above, or like this. If I do this test, cool, okay, I understand now what this do. Cool, I like it, but I don't think that I'm going to use this. Type O to open line below the cursor and place you in insert mode. Type O to open a line. Type O to open line below the cursor and place you in insert mode. If I put the cursor here and press O. Okay. Move the cursor to line marker. Type the lowercase letter O to open up a line below the cursor and place you in insert mode. Now type some text and press Ask to exit insert mode. Remove your open line after you're done. After typing O, the cursor is placed on the open line insert mode. Why don't after typing to open up a line above the cursor, simply type capital O. Capital. O to open Yeah. Yeah. Okay. To open a line above the cursor, simply type capital rather than a lowercase o. Try this on the line below. Remove your okay by 6 append command. The A to insert text after cursor. Move the cursor to the start of the line below marker. Press E until the cursor is on the end of L E Y E. Type the lowercase a to append. Use E to move to the next incomplete word. E. Okay. E. A. Ask. E. Fuck. A. S. E. A. S. So if I do capital A, I'm going to the end of the line in insert mode. Capital A. End of the line in insert mode. Capital A. Okay. A. Before, after. Before, after. We already see E? I don't think so. E to go to the end of the word. Yeah, we see E with a number. Let's start. A to bend. A is before. To enter in the insert mode. And the cursor. Character is placed after the cursor. Character inserted Lesson 6.3, another way to replace. type a capital R to replace more than one character. Move the cursor to the first line below marker X. Move the cursor to the beginning of the first XXX. Now press R, capital R, and type the number below it in the second line so that it replaces the XXX. Press S to leave replace mode. Notice that the rest of the line remains unmodified. Repeat the steps to replace the remaining. Move the cursor to the first line below marker. Move the cursor to the beginning of the first XXX. So it replaced the whole word. R. Test. I get it. I get it now. R 4 6 S 5 7 9. Replace mode is like insert mode, but every type character replaces an existing character. R enter replace mode. It is like insert mode, but every copy and paste. Use the Y operator to copy text and P to put it. Finally, go to the line marked with below and place the cursor after A. Start visual mode V and move the cursor to just before first. Type yank. The highlight text. Move the cursor to the end of the next line. Move the cursor. Type P to put. Press A to type second. Press S to leave insert mode. Use visual mode to select item. Yank it with. I forgot the letter. Move to the end of the next slide with and put text there with B. Okay, so and place the cursor after this. Visual mode. Move the cursor to just before first. Type to yank. YJ with dollar if just the don't get it. Or it's like, don't get it. Press B. Press A. Second. Okay. Type yank, the highlight text, move the cursor to the end of the next line. Type P to put paste, and then press A and type second. Press ask to leave insert mode. Okay, let me do this, and then A second ask. Use visual mode to select item. Visual mode to select item. Yank. P. I don't get it. Let's do it again. Start visual mode with V and move the cursor just before before, not after. So here. So yank, then J, P, A, second, ask. B, yank, P, A, second, ask, up, B, yank, below, but that's correct. Okay. Yank, copy. P to paste. Okay. You can use Y as an operator. Yeah, Y, W, yanks one word. You can use P to put before the cursor rather than after. Use the accents. You can use a P to put before the cursor rather than after. But it's not putting after. Always put before. Now makes sense. If in the middle or at the end, it's not making much of difference. But if I'm in the start, it makes the difference. Okay. I forgot how to undo the undo. R. Fuck. I will go to the lesson 7 and take a break. Set an option so search and substitute commands ignore case. There are many settings in Neovin that you can configure to suit your needs. Search for ignore by entering ignore. Repeat several times by pressing N. Set the IC ignore case option by enter set IC. Now search for ignore again and press N. Notice that ignore and ignore are now also found. Set the LS search and ENC search options. Now type this search command again and see what happens. To disable ignoring case, enter set noink. To invert the value of the setting, prepend it with inv. To remove the highlighting of match, enter. If you want to ignore case for just one search command to the phrase, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do that. Type O to open the line below the cursor and start insert mode. Type O to open a line above the cursor. Type A to insert text after the cursor. Type A in capital letter to insert text after the end of the line. Type E command moves to the end of the word. Type epsilon operator copies text. P to pastes. Typing a capital R enters replace mode until ask is pressed. Typing set the options. Some options are H is LS. Ignore upper lowercase when searching. Show partial match for a search phrase. Highlighting all matching phrase. You can either use the long or the short options. Name prepend note to switch an option off. Set Nike and prepend inv to invert options. to see the percentage of the Control G. 89. We are getting there, guys. We are taking a break. How do I pause this? Not going to pause, whatever. Let me see how. I think the lesson 7 is, yeah, it's the last. I'm going to do this. Getting help. Use the online help system. Neovin has a comprehensive online help system. To get started, try one of these two. Press the F1 key. If you have one, type help. Read the text in the help window to find out how the help works. To jump from one window to another, let me see. F1. Is the cursor okay? Press to jump from one window to another. Okay. You can find help on just about any subject by giving an argument to the help command. Try this. Don't forget to press enter. Help W. C Control D. Insert index user manual. Help W. Help C. Control D. Yeah, I don't get it, the Control D thing. Enable Neovin features. Neovin is a very configurable editor. You can customize it any way you like. To start using more features, create an init.vin file. Start editing the init.vin file. Call mkdir std path. Config p x. Write the file width. You can add all your preferred settings to this in file. For more information, type so call mkdir std path config. So std path, I think it's, don't know the name. P, don't know what is P. X std Okay. Execute path to as to the path. I think it's the current path to the config, and then init.vim. Oh, so as the path, I think it's the path to until config. Then you are ident concatenating with the init.vim to execute. So how do I get out of here and then to so G. Oh, I need to write a file. X to execute. It did. I think I don't know the name of the. Don't know. Or the text that is in the init.vim std path. I think it's the path to the config. Then concatenating with the init.vim. So W. Okay, I create the archive to the you can add all your okay. For more information, type help init.vim. Completion, command line completion with cd and tab. List the contents of the current directory. Type the start of a command. Press cd and you will show a list of commands beginning with E. Press tab and you will complete the command to edit. Now add a space in the start of exiting file name edit field. Press type field file if it is unique. Completion work for many commands. It is especially used for help. Okay. Type help or press F1 or help to open help window. Type help topic to help on topic. Type CW to jump to another window. Type to close help window. Create an init.vim startup script to keep your preferred settings. While in command mode, press CD to see possible completions. Else E. Oh. Okay. Okay. So this is okay. I get it. While command mode to see prospect and press tab. Conclusion. This was intended to give a brief overview of the new editor, just enough to allow you to use it fairly easily. It is far from complete as Nuvin has many more commands. Consult the help often. There are also countless great tutorials and videos to be found online. Here's a bunch of them. LearnVim Progress Loop, LearnVim 2014, Vimcast, Vim videos, LearnVim script the hard way, set 7 habits of effective text editing, Vim. So let's try this. Vim mode, then down. Then yank. I can paste this here or yes. That's good. If you prefer a book, Practical Vim by Drew Neil is recommended often. The sequel Modern Vim includes material specific to New Vim. This tutorial was written by Michael C. Pierce and Robert K. Ward, Colorado. Schools of Minds Using Ideas Supplies by Charles Smith, Colorado State University. Email. Modify for Vim by Bram. Okay. So let's hit enter new. What was that? So I have 2 init vims. That's a problem. LSCDN. Config. Oh, it's in this buffer. Config. So I have a init.lua and a init.vim. Okay. There I am. Okay, now we can go back here. AMRC.
Hey YouTube, I'm TJ DeVries.
Why? Ah, I know why. Okay, don't get it.
And I'm one of the core maintainers of NeoVim. What you just saw was we took a completely fresh installation of NeoVim, and with one command, we were able to pull down a Git repo that sets up NeoVim for you, that installs a package manager, an LSP, a way to configure and install your LSPs, Tree Sitter, and Fuzzy Finder, along with a lot more. But my favorite part about the Kickstart project is not just this one step getting started, but as you're gonna see in this video, we explain every single aspect of your config so that you can actually start your own journey in NeoVim instead of just copy pasting something blindly and fumbling about in pain and agony. Hopefully Kickstart can get you started on your own NeoVim journey quickly, effectively, and most importantly, have a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and do it, guys. And most vital piece of configuration inside of Kickstart is this wonderful and beautiful ASCII art before you. This reminds you not only to use a computer when you're using NeoVim, but also that you should start with Tutor and navigate with HJKL. And also, of course, you can just throw that mouse away. We're gonna get to some keyboard-driven development right now. You're probably wondering, what makes Kickstart different from other projects in the ecosystem? The primary difference is that Kickstart is not a distribution. And when I say distribution, I mean sort of a big bundle of plugins that adds things on top of that to help you either manage those or sort of abstract away some of the configuration. Kickstart is instead a starting point, or effectively a template for the kind of things that you're going to do once you're making your configuration your own. The primary goal of Kickstart is that we have one file, and currently it has less than 300 lines of code and about 400 lines of documentation, that tells you each and every step along the way, from basic configuration to installing plugins to advanced scripting, and even starting to make some of the plugins your own. We're gonna work through that together today, but before we do, I do wanna mention that if you don't know anything about Lua, you should probably pause the video right now and check out something like Learn X and Y Minutes and learn a little bit about Lua. And once you've done that, you might also wanna peruse the Help Lua guide, which has a lot of really useful information about where Lua and NeoVim meet. But after that, let's go ahead and get started. If you didn't know what I meant when I said something like Help Lua guide, then you definitely want to do the next step, which is you want to run Tutor inside NeoVim. When I say run inside NeoVim,
He means this. The Lua 5.1 script engine is building and always available. Try this command to get an idea of what lurks beneath Lua Vim print package loaded. And Vim includes a standard library, Lua std library for Lua. It implements the editor library, Vim script functions plus execute commands, and the API, all of which can be used from Lua code, Lua Vim script Vim.api. These three namespace from the Vim program interface. Lua plugin user configure automatically its curve and load, just like Vim script. See Lua guide for practice. So this guide will go through the basics of Lua and Vim. It is not meant to be a comprehensive encyclopedia of all available features, nor will it detail all intricacies. Think of it is a survival kit that the bare minimum need to know to comfortably get started of using Lua in NeoVim. And important thing to note is that this isn't a guide to the Lua language itself, rather this is a guide of how to configure and modify anything through the Lua language, and the functions we provide to help with this. Take a look at Lua Ref and Lua concepts if you like to learn more about Lua itself. Similarly, this guide assumes some familiarity with the base of MVim, commands, options, mapping out commands, which are converted into user manual. So we have a lot to see. I mean, I'll be right back. Come back. Lua is an extension programming language designed to support general procedural programming with data description facilities. It also offers a good support for object-oriented programming, okay, functional programming, and data-driven programming. Lua is intended to be used as a powerful, lightweight scripting language for any program that needs one. Lua is implemented as a library writing clean C, that is in the common subset of N, CC, and C++. Being an extension language, Lua has no notion of main program, It only works embedded in a host client called the embedding program, or simply the host. This host program can invoke functions to execute a piece of Lua code, can write and read Lua variables, and can register C functions to be called by Lua code. Through the use of C functions, Lua can be augmented, I don't know what that means, to cope with wide range of different domains, thus creating customized and programming language, sharing a syntactical framework. Lua is a free software and is provided as usual with no guarantees and state it is licensed. The implementation described in this manual is available at Lua's official website. Like any other reference manual, this document is dry in places for a discussion of the decisions behind the design of Lua. See reference at LuaRef by bibliography. Lua means moon, of course, in Portuguese, and is pronounced Lu. It is Lua then. Who invented? These sections describe the lexis, the syntax, and the semantic of Lua. In the other words, this section describes which tokens are valid, how they can be combined, and what they are combined mean. The language constructs will be explained using the usual extended B and F notion in which A means 0 or more A's and A means an optional A. The fuck? Names, also called identifiers, in Lua can be any string or letters, digits, and underscores, not beginning with a digit. This coincides with the definition of identifiers in most language. The definition of letter depends on the current language. Any character considered alphabetic by the current locale can be used in an identifier. Identifier are used to name variables in table fields. The following keywords are reserved and cannot be used as names. And in, repeat, break, false, local, return, do, for, new. New is the new of the Lua. Then else function, not true, else elif, if or until while. Lua is a case sensitive language and is a reserved word, but and are two different valid names. As a conversion name starting with underscore followed by uppercase letters such as version are reserved for internal global variables used by Lua. Okay. The following strings denote other tokens. Okay, so okay. Don't know what it is. This is literal strings can be delimited by matching single or double quotes and can contain the following C like escape, sequence, bell, backspace, form feed, new line. I don't know what it is. Moreover, a backslash followed by a real new line result in a new line in the string. Okay, so it's I don't get it this part. A character in a string may also be specified by its numerical values using the escape sequence DDD, where DDD is a sequence of up to 3 decimal digits. Note that if a numerical escapes, it is followed by a digit. It must be expressed using exact 3 digits. String Lua may contain any 8-bit values, including embedded zeros. To put a double single quote new line in backslash or the opening long brackets immediately followed by new line. The new line is not included in this. Okay, it's like Java that in the you would have the system.println that you can put and this is in the strings, right? Literal strings can be delimited by mentioning single or double quote. Okay, bell. I don't know what bell backspace form feed. I know what is new line. The rest I don't know. Okay. Values and types. Lua is a dynamical type language. This means that variables do not have types. Okay. Only values do. There are no type definition in the language. All values carry their own type. All values in Lua are first class values. This means that all values can be stored in variables, passed as argument to other functions and returned as a result. There are 8 basic types in Lua: new, boolean, number, string, function, user data, thread. Oh, they work with thread then. And table. New is the type of the value new, whose main property is to be different. Sorry. Main property is to be different from any other value. It's usually represent the absence of a useful value. Boolean is the type of the value, false and true, but both nil and false make a condition false. Any other value makes it true. Number represent real, double precision, floating point numbers. It is easy to build Lua interpreters that use other internal representations for numbers such as single precision float or long integers. C file. String represents an array of characters. Lua is 8-bit clean. Strings may contain any 8-bit character, including embedded zeros. Okay. I'm not that smart. Okay, looking. I don't know like the part of bits this of the computer, how it's stored in the memory and how we process that memory. I want to get there, but I don't know how to do. I mean, I don't need to know how to do that because it is automatically doing by the language, but I want to know how to do this. That we can call and manipulate functions writing Lua and functions writing C. I want to know C, the language. Oh my god. The type user data is provided to allow arbitrary C data to be stored in Lua variables. This type corresponds to a block of raw memory and has no predefined operation in Lua except assign and identify an identity test. However, by using meta tables, the programmer can define operation from user data values. See Lua meta table. User data values cannot be created or modified in Lua only through the C API. This guarantees the integrity of data owned by the host program. The type thread represents independent threads of execution. It is used to implementing coroutines. See Lua coroutines. Do not confuse Lua threads with operations system threads. Lua support coroutines on all systems, even those that do not support threads. PHP don't support threads. So let's continue the video.
What I mean is you first press escape to make sure you're in normal mode. You press colon. Notice now we're in command mode. We type out tutor and press enter. When you do this, you will enter the NeoVim tutorial. If you've never opened NeoVim or you don't know anything about it, this is a really, really good place to start. And the most important piece of information that you learn from here is how you can finally quit. Once you've completed tutor, or if you already knew the NeoVim basics, then the next thing that you need to do, even if you're a bit more experienced in NeoVim, is just run help by itself. This is a really important document that can tell you a lot of information about navigating, exploring, and understanding what is in the help. Throughout the rest of this init Lua, I've left various comments telling you where to look in the help. And if you're exploring something new and you don't quite know where to go, we have included a nice shortcut, which is /SH, for searching through the help. So in this case, we could look for something like lazy install, and we could press enter and go to find out more information about the installation of lazy. For don't quite know where to go, we have included a nice shortcut, which is /SH. For searching through the help. So in this case, we could look for something like lazy install, and we could press enter and go to find out more information about the installation of lazy, or whatever it is the topic you're looking for. But this is a key and very, very important aspect of your NeoVim journey, is you need to learn how to grok the help. We always love telling people, read the friendly manual. And if you don't want to read, you can listen right here to me reading the entire manual. The last thing I want to point out before we start looking at the code is that throughout the init Lua, I've left little notes like this with bright green text. Each time you see one, it's going to introduce a new concept or idea that's very important to your configuration. So make sure that you understand them and are paying attention when you see them, especially when you are reading through this config after you're done watching the video. The first thing that we configure is the leader key, which is effectively a namespace for all of your custom key maps. In our case, we already went over how /SH searches the help. And you can see that if I press space, I get this pop-up that tells me something about the key maps we already have set up. If I press S, we get to search, and then now you can see that the H right here is for help. So space SH gets us to here. And once again, if you wanted to read more about Leader, you could just type Leader in and press enter. As you know, NeoVim's a very configurable editor, which means we have a lot of different ways to control the functionality inside NeoVim. One of the primary ways that happens is through options. I'm not going to go over each of the options. You can go ahead and read through the descriptions if you want, but we try and set some good defaults for you for the experience that you might expect normally when you open up a random text editor. The important things for you to know are that you can use vim.opt to set those options from inside of Lua. And you can even test that by running things like Lua vim.opt.number, and instead of setting it to true, we could set it to false, and you'll see that removes our number column. Key maps are an essential part of the NeoVim experience. You might be more familiar with them conceptually as something like keyboard shortcuts, but the difference is key maps don't always have to have all of the buttons pressed down at once. They can be a sequence of keys. For example, DD deletes a line, and you can undo that deletion, which you should have learned about in Tutor.
Yep.
Here we're going to create a few of our own key maps to start extending NeoVim to work in the way that we want it to work. So a very simple one would be something like, let's say we have an error in our code. I don't have a function called ASDF. What I can do is in normal mode, I can press right bracket D, and that's going to call the function vim.diagnostic.goToNext. And when I do that, so I'm going to press right caret D, my cursor will move to that line and display the diagnostics or error messages for that line. Each of the key maps works exactly the same way, where we specify the mode, the left-hand side, which is the keys we're going to press, the right-hand side, which is the keys or functions that will be executed, and then we pass some options to do things like giving it a description, making a buffer local, or more, which you'll see later throughout the configuration. And just to be clear, there's nothing magical about what's happening in the key map. If we ran lua vim.diagnostic.goToNext, and we called this function from the Lua command line, we're going to have the exact same experience as if we had typed those keys. So these two things are exactly the same. It's just about adding them to your fingertips instead of to the command line. Now that we're able to add functionality to our keystrokes, another important feature is being able to add functionality to when particular events are fired by NeoVim. This is really similar to something like event listeners in JavaScript, but we call them auto commands in NeoVim because they automatically run some commands. In this case, the first one that I want to show you is what gives us this functionality that if we do something like YAP and we yank around the paragraph, we get that little highlight which shows the region that we just yanked. This is really helpful because sometimes it's not clear. I yank this line, or I yank J, or I yank till Y. It's really nice to get that little bit of feedback that shows you what was previously yanked. So how does this happen? The first thing is that we have to tell NeoVim what event we want to listen to. That's this
Okay, that's cool. Yank. To yank to the yank thing. then yank this. Or in the Vim I can yank. I think I can't yank in Vim. Yeah, some keys. Yank. Work. Paste. Okay. Okay, so or I need to be in visual mode to yank here. Yank. Paste. Yeah. I can just put in the, so if I yank like this and paste, I mean, yank, paste, yank, word, paste. Yank, word, paste. Paste. Yeah, I can't move to other to here. I can paste here, but with NeoVim I can. Okay, this is the guy that induced me to go to NeoVim.
Text yank post, which happens after we've yanked text. We give it a description which just helps us know, hey, this is what it is in case you forget later. We have a group, and this helps us prevent duplicate listeners. If you've used event listeners before and you call something like registering an event listener twice, you end up running the code twice, which is not what we want to do, and groups help prevent that. And lastly, we have our callback, which actually says, hey, after we've had this event, please execute this code, or this command in a sense. And that's what all the commands are. We have a few more throughout the configuration that you'll see, but all of them follow this general pattern of registering to an event and then calling some particular callback. Everything we've done up until now has been useful in the base default configuration for NeoVim. It doesn't install anything else. But there's a lot of really awesome and exciting plugins and people working throughout the NeoVim ecosystem, creating really helpful tools for you to be more productive and, in my opinion, have more fun. So to do that, we're going to install a plugin manager. You don't have to worry exactly what each of these lines do, but ultimately this just checks to see if you have lazy nvim installed, and if not, it installs it for you. This is how we get that startup sequence that just magically starts bootstrapping itself. So this is sort of the bootstrapping of the plugin manager, and after we bootstrap that, then we can start configuring and installing the plugins. Now that NeoVim has lazy installed, we can use it to update, install, and check the status of different plugins. So we can run lazy and we get this nice menu. We can check different things like installing plugins if there are any not installed. We can check for updates by pressing capital U. We can check to profile to see how long it took for lazy to start up. Each of these items is explained in more detail inside of Help Lazy, but the main one that you'll probably want to do as you start experimenting is just lazy update, which allows you to get the updated plugins from your configuration. You can always roll back by snapshotting or using the other tools available inside Lazy to keep your config safe and secure while you're experimenting with new ideas. There's a variety of ways that we can specify what plugins we'd like Lazy to install. The simplest way is to just pass an owner and repo link, like tpope/vim-sleuth. What this looks for is the GitHub repo under this owner and repo. If you'd like to pass something that's outside of GitHub, just give the entire URL and Lazy will download it. Many NeoVim plugins use a setup function to control both when and how a plugin is loaded. Because of how widespread this idiom is, Lazy includes support for this out of the box. The simplest way to do this is to use the ops keyword. And if you pass an empty table, that's like saying, hey, plugin, please load yourself with your default configuration immediately when NeoVim starts. To override the default configuration with the values you want, simply place those in the ops table. In this case, we're configuring get signs with what signs we would like to show in the gutter. But plugins can be configured with more than just tables. Instead, we can actually run Lua code whenever a plugin is actually loaded. Fortunately for us, this isn't VS Code, it's just Lua code, and we can do whatever we want. Lazy makes it very easy to control when and how the plugin's loaded, just like we talked about with setup. Because we can delay loading of a plugin to some later event, we can then delay the execution of the configuration until later as well. This helps improve startup time and also helps it so that if you're experimenting with multiple different plugins, you can easily enable or disable them without having to rewrite your entire config. In this case, we wait to load WitchKey until the very lazy event, and once it's loaded, we call the setup and register additional key maps. This is very helpful for separating the WitchKey config from the rest of your configuration. Plugins can also specify dependencies. Dependencies are actually just the same kind of tables that we've been building up to now. So you can use any of the same keys like ops, config, or any of the new ones that we'll explain as we go in both your root or your dependency plugin specifications. This provides really powerful configuration options for plugins that sort of work together to provide a really powerful experience. And here's where we get to the first sort of larger plugin configuration that we have within Kickstarter. This is for a fuzzy finder called Telescope, which was made by a super cool software developer who makes great YouTube videos and would definitely love it if you smashed that like button, hit subscribe, and rang the bell.
It was you.
Anyways, To use Telescope, we've provided a large range of popular key maps for you, and you can explore what the key maps do in this section. But beyond that, Telescope has its own sort of introspection options that allow you to really quickly explore what's possible to do and what you've already configured. Let's try a few examples. As we've shown before, we can do space SH to open up the searching help. But what I haven't shown yet is that if you press Control // you're going to open up a preview window which shows you all of the available actions that you can currently take within this picker. This is contextualized to each Telescope picker, so Git-related ones will have Git-related commands, file ones will have file commands, etc. We've included several key maps to help you get started using Telescope within NeoVim. Lots and lots of different things can be fuzzy findered, I don't know, searched for using Telescope inside of NeoVim. Not just files or help, but also your key maps or symbols in a project or diagnostics. You can even search through files that you've opened before or the currently open buffers. We've listed each of them out here, and there's great help documentation in telescope.builtin, which you can check out if you're interested in any more of these or their particular options that they include. An example of using the options to customize Telescope's behavior is included in the key map here that helps you be able to search your NeoVim files with the same keystroke regardless of where you're currently running NeoVim. So this doesn't matter if you're in your config or if you're in a regular project. You can always press space SN to search your NeoVim files. You can see each of them shows the preview, even though we're not currently in that project. How does that work? Well, we call find files, and what we do is we provide an override for the current working directory key, and we pass the standard path of config to tell Telescope, hey, search for files in this directory. More than just configuring the behavior, we can actually configure the way that Telescope looks as well. In the case of searching your current buffer with current buffer fuzzy find, we actually want more of a view that sort of filters down the values here so that when we're searching for something like advanced example, we can see the two different places that we have that within our file. We don't need the preview and we don't need all of the same layout. So Telescope allows you to do this as well. For more information about this, you can read the layout section of the Telescope help. The next big section of a lot of important configuration is configuring the LSP. Now, if you don't know what LSP is, it means the Language Server Protocol. I have a really short video that I'll link in the description, sort of explaining a broad overview. But the very short Hey YouTube, it's me, TJ DeBreeze, here to talk about a term that I hope can sort of answer this question that I often...
It's not this LSP. I like your content. LSP.
short version is that NeoVim speaks the protocol for language servers, and needs to know both how to run and execute those external processes, as well as how to trigger the different requests that you want to do. So that might sound like a lot, but we'll walk through each step to make sure it's very clear what's going on. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell NeoVim, hey, here's all of the things that I want to be able to do with the LSP. This means primarily what we're doing is we're going to be setting up key maps to tell NeoVim when I press something like GD, what I want you to do is go to the definition. We'll walk through a few of the examples, but you can read through the rest of the docs to pick up any of the other key maps that we have there. First thing to note is that we are using that create auto command idea again. This one is going to run on any time LSP attach is fired as an event. And what happens is we're going to run this function whenever that event is fired. The important things for here are, one, it's really good to remember that Lua is a real programming language. That just means that you can write little helper functions or write for loops or whatever it is that you need to do to make your configuration both easier to read and easier to maintain. In this case, we write a small helper function called map that takes some keys, a function, and a description, and then we'll apply that key map in normal mode to the local buffer and prefix LSP as part of the description. This is helpful to just make sure that you're actually doing the same thing every time and not forgetting to set this as a buffer mapping, things like that. The same kind of tips and tricks that you would normally do inside of programming, we can apply inside NeoVim as well. The two most important keybinds in my mind for an LSP are go to definition and find references. By default in Kickstart, we've included GD as go to definition. So we just talked about building that map function, and now we're using it here on line 459. When we press GD, it's going to open up the possible places that's defined. We can press enter and we'll jump there. If there's only one option, it'll immediately jump to that definition. Like if we're using keys, it's going to jump directly to where that variable is declared. The important key map is, hey, where is this thing being used? And for that, we're going to do GR for sort of go to references. So when we press GR on map here, we're going to be presented with each of the different references of map. So we can press enter and hop immediately over to one of those. One really powerful part of LSP is that these things work even across files or sometimes across projects, depending on how well the LSP is supported and the rest of your workspace configuration. Another really powerful thing about LSP is because of the way NeoVim's LSP is structured, we can actually compose multiple tools together to use them in interesting ways. For example, when I press leader DS or space DS, I'm going to look up the document symbols. What that means is we're going to look up sort of all of the variables or functions or classes or whatever's defined in the current file. When I press space DS, we open that up and I can actually fuzzy find over anything that's in this file. So if we do map again, we'll go back to where we had map, but if we did something like cursor line, we're going to go to the only spot we use cursor line. This is a really powerful tool for navigating quickly around a file, and it's a composition of both Telescope, which we just talked about, and LSP. This is one of the great things about NeoVim is that it's able to compose these tools together. So as you learn more about Telescope, it can also power up and level up your LSP skills, and you can keep on moving more quickly and more effortlessly throughout your editor. But this gets even more powerful. You might be wondering, what's kind of the difference between fuzzy finding the symbols versus fuzzy finding just everything in the document? Well, the first one is that the symbols only show definitions, so it won't show things in comments. But LSP also has a concept of workspace symbols. So if we do space WS for workspace symbols, I'm actually able to search all across my NeoVim config. So if I look for something like completion, we can actually see all of the different places that something with completion is defined throughout my NeoVim configuration. This works as well if your LSP supports this for other languages, so you could search across your entire project to look for where a symbol is defined. Feature of LSP that I want to show you is that it can also provide and help you find documentation for the current thing that you're editing. In this case, if we put our cursor on top of an identifier and press capital K, we can actually see the documentation provided by the LSP. This is super useful as you're exploring your code. Maybe if you were using an inferior editor before, you may have used your mouse to make this window pop up, but we don't need to do that here. We can just press capital K and get straight to reading that friendly manual. So what we've done up until now is we've told NeoVim, hey NeoVim, here's the things I want to be able to do with my LSP. But now we also need to tell NeoVim, hey NeoVim, here's how you start, execute, and control LSPs. Because remember, LSPs are actually sort of things that live outside of NeoVim. There's some
Okay, I'm going to stop right here. Because it's already almost, let's continue.
External process that we're communicating with inside of NeoVim. So we need to inform NeoVim how to start, run, and control those external processes so that we can get the code intelligence we're looking for. So the first thing that you'll see is setting up capabilities. Now, I know a lot of people just copy paste this into their config, but just stop for 1 second and let me explain what it does. Capabilities is actually you informing the LSP what the client, so that's NeoVim, what the client is capable of doing. So by default, NeoVim is not capable of expanding all the different types of LSP snippets and autocomplete. There's certain other replace strategies or automatic text insertion actions that NeoVim doesn't supply. However, and we'll cover this later in the video, we're using a completion plugin called nvimconf, which is effectively adding those capabilities to NeoVim. So we're going to merge these capabilities together and then inform all of the LSPs about what we are now capable of doing. Now that we've configured what NeoVim is able to do, we want to tell NeoVim, here's the servers that I want to run. So by default, all we have enabled is the Lua language server, but to turn on some of these servers, all you would need to do is just uncomment this line. This would install ClangD on the next installation and automatically attach in C files, assuming that you have all of the requisite things for running ClangD on your system, like a relatively new C compiler, things like that. If you wanted to run Go, you would just do the same exact thing like this. You would once again need Go on your computer somewhere so that this could be built and executed. Some languages have additional tooling outside of just the LSP, so you could explore doing those if the base LSP setup isn't doing enough. But in general, I find myself pretty happy with just an LSP and the same key maps between every language. An example of configuring the Lua LSP, which is the default inside Kickstart. The reason that we do this is we are trying to inform the LSP where it can find all of the other Lua files in your NeoVim configuration. The primary place where that happens is here on line 560, where we get all of the runtime files and we send those over for the LSP to check. This is how we get things like vim.api.nvim starting to provide completion for us with documentation for each of the items. This is really, really useful as you're trying to configure and execute your NeoVim config to not just sort of blindly be guessing about what functions might be available to you. Now that we've told NeoVim what language servers we need to install, we need to actually install them. And to do that, we use a tool called Mason. Now, if you're not familiar with Mason, for my soy latte loving, coffee shop enjoying viewers, it's basically like brew install for NeoVim. And for my single viewers, it's kind of like Pac-Man. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use Mason to install the LSPs and make sure that they're available in NeoVim's runtime. So after Mason installs the LSP, we need some way to connect those installed LSPs with NeoVim. Once again, I just have to remind you, these are external processes. We need to inform NeoVim how to run them. Simplest way to do that in Kickstart is using lspconfig, which is simply a way of saying, hey, I want to connect Mason and nvim lspconfig. The way that we do that is by calling the setup function for the servers that we've configured. The nice thing about this is that's always updates, so if we add a new entry in the table above in servers, it will automatically handle that in lspconfig and install them through Mason. A feature most LSPs include is the ability to format your file. However, there's no automatic setup for that in NeoVim to run that on save or to manage the interactions between external formatters and the LSP itself. One thing that's really nice is this conform nvim plugin is useful for us. We can set it up to format on save automatically, and it will fall back to calling the LSP formatting if we couldn't find an external tool to do that formatting. So if I indent this a few times and then I do write to write the file, it automatically formats on safe. The last major area of configuration that we have in Kickstart is for auto completion. Most of the configuration is actually about setting up keybinds, and I need you to bear with me just a little bit. The keybinds that I have by default in Kickstart are not what you are used to from most other editors. But if you give me some time to explain, I hope to be able to convince you why it's at least good to give this a chance before you go back to tab does 85 different tasks. So the mappings that we have by default in Kickstart are as follows. The first is that we use Control N and P to move between the next and the previous item in completion. So if we were to start typing something like comp.mapping and we wanted to select down here, we press Control N and P to cycle through these items. Then once we have an item that we're happy with, we can press Control Y to accept that item. Select down. So if we were to start typing something like comp.mapping and we wanted to select down here, we press Control N and P to cycle through these items. Then once we have an item that we're happy with, we can press Control Y to accept that item. Now, if we only had select here and we press Control Y, it would complete the end of that item, whatever one is the top item or whatever is selected. Now you're probably wondering, those seem like Neanderthal keybinds, and in some ways, you're a bit right. The keybinds have been around in Vim for longer than probably any of us watching have been alive. However, because they are the Vim standard keybinds for completion items, what you'll find is that Control N and Control P show up in many, many places throughout NeoVim. For example, when you're searching in Telescope, you can move up and down with Control N and Control P. Additionally, the reason that I like using Control Y for accepting is that I really like when keys only do one thing. So I really like that tab, when I press tab, always inserts some space for alignment. And that when I press enter, I always get a new line. And so for me, using the Vim standard keybinds and keeping each key to always doing one particular thing is really helpful for reducing the mental overhead that I have when typing and reducing frustration when you tried to press tab and then it didn't work and you need to go back or delete what you were writing, all these kinds of things. I find it keeps me much more in the flow when Control Y always completes and tab always puts spaces inside of the editor. The last thing to mention for NVim Comp is that NVim Comp is really a completion engine. And what I mean by that is it's sort of a framework for multiple different sources to give possible completion candidates, and then you select them all in one unified way. That's a really fancy way of saying we can have three different things like NVim LSP, LewisNip, and Path. They all get merged into one completion list that's presented to you. So if you install other NVim Comp plugins, maybe you want a buffer completion or you want like an AI completion or something like that, you'll need to make sure that you add those to the sources for NVim Comp to make sure that NVim Comp's actually getting those items in your config. If you've been wondering how we got the really cool note, hello, or to do, wow, or fix me, I haven't even commented on the video yet? That's all from this plugin from Folke, the GOAT, to do comments. And once again, you can see we're using the combination of the tools we've already learned, like dependencies and ops, to easily load and install the plugin. And one of my favorite additions that we've added to Kickstart since the last time I made a video is the Mini NVim plugin. This Mini NVim plugin is actually a collection of small independent plugins that you can either install separately or as one big bundle. We have this installed to do a lot of really cool stuff, like in these examples, we can do something like visually around the next parenthesis, and we will select in visual mode the next set of parentheses. Or if we wanted to do something like yank inside next quote, then we'll do that as well, and you'll see that we yanked inside these quotes here. Finally, we can do something like change inside quote, and we'll start immediately changing the stuff inside of here. It's a really powerful plugin that you can use to really quickly and efficiently edit a lot of text in NeoVim. Additionally, the plugin comes with a really great surround plugin, which you can use to do cool stuff like if we type SAIW parenthesis, which I'm sure you're thinking, that's an insane number of letters, but no, just follow me. S is for surround, A is for add surrounding, I is for inner, W's for word, and then we can do a single character like a parenthesis, and we add those parentheses around the word that we're currently on. You can extend this to delete and replace, which is really powerful when you want to move quickly and change things that maybe are sort of far away from your cursor without grabbing your mouse and moving around a bunch. The last item that we're using from Mini is for the status line, and you can configure that or read more about it by reading Help Mini Status Line. There's also a bunch of other really cool plugins in sort of this Mini ecosystem, which you can check out in the link provided in Kickstart. The last plugin that we have is NVIM Tree Sitter, which is a very powerful plugin, but we have only the basics set up for Kickstart. By default, we install a few of the grammars. We tell Tree Sitter, please install new grammars when I open those new files, and turn on highlighting and indenting. It's possible to do even more impressive things like incremental selection, text objects, or even showing the context of where your cursor is. Well, you have to check out the links below to try and find those and configure them for a way that you'd like. We will have some follow-up videos coming soon about Tree Sitter, but in the meantime, this does exactly what you need to get started with NeoVim, which is the whole point of this project. And that's everything that Kickstart includes by default. But like I said at the beginning, Kickstart is not a distribution. What I want you to do is to take Kickstart and start making it your own. I've included a few examples of how you can do that. For example, we have an indent line plugin included in the repo, which you can find by searching for indent line. And it just does something very simple. It just adds a new plugin, it specifies the branch, and tells Lazy to set this up. If what we do is we go down to where we have indent line and uncomment that line, when we save and start NeoVim again, you'll see that indent blank line is now installed. And when we edit our NeoVim, our init.lua, we have those indent lines that some people really like. Not personally a fan, but that's fine. The point of including it in the repo is to show just how easy it is to start extending Kickstart with new plugins and new ideas, even in multiple different files. In fact, we have included as well a way for you to not have to manually require each one, but you can use the import mechanism from inside of Kickstart. You can use the import mechanism that's part of Lazy by including more plugins in the file in this custom plugins init Lua folder. So with that, that's everything that you need to know to get started and to get moving on your NeoVim journey. Feel free to delete, feel free to add, feel free to change. The whole point of Kickstart is not that I'm telling you everything that you should be doing, but that instead we're giving you a little boost and a little direction to get started and be productive right away. I really hope you enjoy the Kickstart project. If you like the video, once again, a great way to say thanks is to smash the like. If you want to support me and my work, you can support me on GitHub sponsors or be a member of this channel or all the other sorts of places that people normally do. I really appreciate all the support and the love. And ultimately, sharing this video can really help me out too. Thanks everybody for your time, and I really hope you have as much fun in NeoVim as I have.
So that's it for today, guys. Tomorrow we have more.